Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Reef Automation live stream. It is Tuesday instead of Monday. I wasn't able to do it yesterday, unfortunately. And my guest seems to be running late, so we're going to see how this works out. We'll wait till people come in. It looks like we only got 5 people in here, so we'll wait a little bit to kind of go over some things. Yeah, for the 5 people that are in here, why don't you go ahead and share this with your friends so we can get some more people in here. Yeah, it's Tuesday night, not Monday night, so hopefully people knew that I was still doing this week. So everybody, hope you had a great holiday, New Year's, Christmas, all that fun. I um, I didn't do much now that I think about it. My wife was home, so we just kind of got things together in the house and reorganized some things. And I actually finally got a chance to clean up the fish tanks. It's been a while since I have a chance to do that. And I also got to adjust some things, some parameters, and redo some things in both the tanks. Everything's doing fantastic. Really haven't had any issues with any of my tanks, which has been great. I installed some new hydros equipment, which I'm going to kind of go over a little bit today in today's stream, along with networking and so forth. Hopefully, we get my guest on. That would be awesome. Um, no, I don't have pink eye. I got something in my eye earlier, and it's just bugging me. Um, so let's see, couple things. Last week was an interesting week for me. I don't know if you were paying attention to my Facebook group or to my Instagram, but Mastertronics were released. They were released along with Alcatronics, and I'm not exactly sure what happened to this point, but what I can tell you is they were available for sale, and for us dealers, we have the ability to buy them when they become available. So I went ahead and bought them, and unfortunately, all of my orders got canceled, every single one of them. And then I was having trouble getting stock of it, and I was like, oh, here we go again. Um, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, to be quite frank, but I was finally able to get an order through for myself. So I was able to buy a Mastertronic. I do have it. I think it was already shipped, so I think it's going to be here this week, which is great. I've been waiting, I don't know how many months for this, and I was able to get one just by basically being like, hey, I placed these orders. I've been waiting forever and still don't have one. And luckily, I was able to buy one, so I should have it pretty soon. So that was great. Um, but yeah, I never really got the ability to pre-order. I didn't know you could pre-order them, even though I've said it on my stream multiple times that I'd like to pre-order them. So I was a little bit, I don't know, I was a little bit upset, but thank goodness I was able to get one, and all's good. We're gonna have one, and then I can get rid of the Reef bot finally. And with that being said, I'm going to do a Reef bot versus Mastertronic video, which I've been wanting to do if I had the Mastertronic. So, let's see. We only got like 12 people in here. Wow. I guess Tuesdays are not the days to do these. Let's see if we can get some more people in here. Let's see about the TDS meters with Hydros. I was really excited to install them. I might do a video on how they all work. But there's a couple things that I'm noticing about them. One being that it seems to register TDS um, just all the time, even though I don't have any. My filters have just been all replaced. My membranes were all replaced, and I'm still getting TDS to come through this thing. So I think it has some, I don't know. There's got to be something going on in these lines that make it so the TDS shows up on the hydros, and then of course I get alerts all the time. So I had to set those things to 10 TDS, because anything below TDS it would just register all the time. I might have to calibrate it. I don't really know yet. But so far they've been working actually pretty good. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with them otherwise. So let's kind of talk about a couple things. going on in my store. I have a couple other products that I'm going to be releasing. I'm going to be releasing Reef Octopus and Red Sea soon, that you can purchase, which will be great. So I'm looking forward to that. And I don't know where my guest is. Hopefully he gets on here. But today's topic is going to be about networking. Specifically, it's going to be about what I notice in the reefing hobby in terms of networking that I don't know is essentially a no-no or potentially something that maybe people don't realize that they're doing wrong. Um, I had seen some stuff on the Coral View Hydros website, and I noticed that it was not very accurate in terms of what I believe a stable network should be. So I thought it would be a great idea to have a stream about it. I know last stream I had a lot of people were complaining about their network and they wanted to know how to set up networks. So I thought this would be a really good stream idea. I've done this in the past. I had another stream where I talked about networking, and I do want to hope that the people that are here will ask some questions to keep this thing going. Seeing as there's only 13 people in here right now. It's probably not going to be a long stream unless we get more people in here and keep the stream going. What's going on, Charles Daniels? What's up? Jake Speed, do ORP probes lose calibration? They generally do not. So if you are having an ORP problem, I would just buy another ORP probe. Most of the time, ORP probes will last about 2 years pretty well. Um, let's see. DJ Mike Fury, what's up, man? It's good to see you. Let's see. Really not much going on in this chat. We don't have a lot of people in tonight, so it's unfortunate, but it's okay. I'll try to get through it. So networking wise, one of the things that I notice a lot of people are doing nowadays are these mesh networks. And for those that aren't familiar with how mesh networks work, essentially, it works like a Zigbee type network, if you're familiar with Zigbee. And what Zigbee is instead of it being point to point, what it does is it creates kind of like a nest, I guess you can say, or think of it like a beehive, I guess, or a honeycomb. That's how I look at it. And if you have one mesh network, let's say in your bedroom, and you have one mesh network antenna in your office, and then you have another mesh network antenna in your, I don't know, whatever, outside, they're all going to talk to each other. So they're all going to send information to each other and then boost their signal. And that's essentially how a mesh network works. So the problem with mesh networks is because of the fact that you're not directly connecting to the specific access point or the specific unit, it's going to share its information between the amount of them. So for instance, if you have a mesh network in your home and let's say you have 10 of them, that means 10 of those products are sending information between all of each other wirelessly. And what essentially happens is because you're sharing all of that information, is the speed and the bandwidth actually decreases the more of them you have. So if you had a mesh network and you only had 2 of them, you're going to have a pretty good success rate. But if you get into a house that has like 10 of them, you're going to notice a significant speed decrease because they're all communicating with each other. So that's why mesh networks in general are more of I would like to say they're more of a sales ploy, similar to that of 3D. 3D televisions came out, and you barely see anybody talking about it anymore because it was kind of a sales like pitch essentially. The same thing with mesh networks. These companies like Linksys can sell these cheap, systems, Arrow, all these cheap networking systems that are not built very well, to be honest with you. They're made from very cheap products or parts, and then they boast all of this information that's actually not true most of the time, especially if it's not set up properly. So I personally have never liked mesh networks because mesh networks just seem to slow people's networks down, more problems than not. I have a lot of people that put their mesh network in and then I recommend something else. They put something else in and they're amazed how much faster and how much more stable the network is than a mesh network. Because you got to remember, the mesh network is going to connect. Each one of those devices are going to connect to each other. So if you have interference in any one of those chains, you're going to have an issue. So for instance, you're going to have, let's say, bedroom mesh network 1 antenna and office have absolutely no interference, but let's say you get the one in the family room and the one in the family room to the office has interference. It's going to cause interference in the entire system because they talk to each other. You see how that works? So that's why I've never been a fan of mesh networks. And the right way to set up a network and the way that I've been taught in school and the experience that I've had is you want to hardwire your wireless product or your antenna, I'm sorry. So what we do is we call these access points, right? So you want to have an access point in each room hardwired with an Ethernet cord to your router. And what that's going to do is it's going to separate all of your antennas throughout your house. So when your computer connects, it's only connecting to one of those antennas. And then the term we use is roaming. And what happens is your computer then goes to another room, and whatever's the stronger signal, it's going to roam onto that network. And in doing so, it's still going to be connected directly from your computer, your phone, or whatever to that access point. And another term we use in the networking world is sticky. It's going to be sticky because it's going to be sticking to that specific antenna, and it's not going to have any issues if there's an interference with another unit in the house. Or let's say you have, I don't know, let's say you have 10 or 10 to 20 different devices on one access point, but you only have your computer on the other access point. Your computer is going to run a little bit better because it's the only thing connected. And in really good network products, you can actually designate what products you want to connect to what access points in the house. Let's see. Joe Savoy. We switched to a mesh at our recommendation of a provider. Of course you did. It's constantly messing up. However, again, your provider is going to always try to sell you on that because they make tons of money on it. It's very cheaply made, and again, it's more of a sales pitch. Because of a leak from your entire, I don't know what the heck that means. That makes no sense to me. So again, this mesh thing is kind of like a hype. It's kind of like a fad type of thing in terms of networking. It's not very good. It's not very good at all. And unfortunately, the people that say it's good, let's say we have a ton of people in here and they say, "Oh, I have a mesh network and it's fantastic," haven't used the other type of network to give a good comparison. For example, most of these mesh networks will boast that they can support gigabit bandwidth. Unfortunately, with mesh networks, that's generally not the case. If you do a speed test with your phone on a mesh network and then do the same speed test on another network with the same router, the same modem, the same speed, you will notice a significant difference not only in latency, which is also important, and also your speed will be much faster. And it's just, again, it's just the way that it works. And it's not always about speed either. It's always about, like I said, latency, packet loss, and the amount of information that you need to send to your products are going to really depend on how strong of a network you need. And this brings up the point in reefing. We got Hydros, we got Mastertronics, we got all kinds of different products, right? Most of these products, I would say about 90% of these reefing products require such a small amount of packet information transfer that there's no reason to have a really strong network for these devices. Now, when I say strong network, I don't necessarily mean a strong wireless network. I mean a strong network, like a strong backbone, strong wires, all the best wires. These products don't require that kind of infrastructure. Now, for instance, in my house, I have a server, I have two computers, and I connect to multiple clients on a daily basis to upload and download programming software. In my house, I need every single one of my devices to be strong and be able to send information between them and be able to send information to my clients in a timely manner. Therefore, in my case, a stronger network is warranted. Now, let's just say, for example, you're a teacher, not saying anything against teachers, but let's say you're a teacher and you're gone all day and then you come home at night and you watch Netflix. Just an example. Or you go on the internet and grade papers. Um, do you really need Gigablast network or Giga networking? Probably not. And therefore, possibly the mesh network can work in that situation in a smaller home. But again, I think it's all dependent upon what you need and what you want to get out of your system. But when it comes to reefing, and this is the thing that I see all the time in all of these channels, is people are getting products on top of their currently working system to make their Hydros or Apex or Mastertronic or whatever, all these things work on top of an existing network by adding a bridge or a trans repeater or some who knows what they're adding to it. And when you add these type of devices without wiring them properly and without having the same specs as your router does, for example, what's happening is just by adding that device, you're slowing down your entire network. And that's kind of the whole reason of me discussing this today, is because I see that just so much in the reefing hobby. Nothing against these companies, but Linksys is really good at it. They'll sell you a $20 access point and they'll say, "Oh, this is all you need to get your Mastertronic working." Well, if you had a stable and accurate network and it was currently set up properly, you wouldn't need this $20 device. And that's kind of what I'm kind of going at here. Let's see. Travis said, "What do you recommend for a router? We had a Nighthawk, but something happened to Wi-Fi, and now it's fine when it's hardwired." I don't know what for FYI means over here by this Russian person or whatever. So more than likely, you're going to be banned. What do you recommend for a router? We had a Nighthawk. Okay, so here's the thing about Nighthawk routers. They're extremely good uh, with what they do, okay? Travis, your Nighthawk is a great router. However, it doesn't have a very strong signal. So depending on what Nighthawk you got, because there's a couple different ones, most of them have a really good infrastructure, okay? So the router themselves is very good, but the wireless inside it is very bad. So what happens is you'll get a really strong signal when you're, I don't know, 50 feet away from it, but then when you're like 100 feet away from it, that signal is just not going to work very well. So that's where access points come in, and that's, I think, the biggest conversation piece of tonight is your Nighthawk router, Travis. While it's a fantastic router, if you want to get Wi-Fi throughout your house, you need to hardwire access points into different areas of your house and then add those access points. And that's kind of the right way to do things when it comes to routing and adding Wi-Fi to your systems. Um, let's see. Yeah, DJ Mike Fury is using a Luxel router with Luxel access points, which is exactly what I would recommend. I don't always recommend like mixing things. That's another thing I notice. What's going on, Greg? What's your thoughts on Google Nest? I believe you're talking about mesh networking, and I went over this a little bit earlier in the stream, but I very much so do not like mesh networks. And again, some homes work really well with mesh networks. Some homes work very terribly with mesh networks. It depends on your home, and it depends on kind of what you're going to be doing with the network is going to depend on if it's going to work properly. But I'm going to always recommend anything against mesh networks just for the basis of interference. Mesh networks are very prone to interference. Let's see. It'll be great for a little bit after I'm plugging it back in, then after a few hours it goes to my cell services fast. It sounds like you just have a bad router. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Um, So let's see. Anyway, so I'm trying to hopefully I don't lose my train of thought. So again, switches, routers, all these different networking components come into play when you're setting up a system and making sure that it's accurate and going to work properly. But there's something else that people aren't aware of, and this is kind of something else I want to go over. Uh, if you're going to be putting in access points, right, you're going to hardwire everything to your router, you're going to put in the proper switches, everything we're discussing. Then we have to talk about channels and we have to talk about bandwidth allocation and all kinds of other funky IT words. But you'll notice that most of the Hydros products have 2.4 as their bandwidth for their Wi-Fi. Okay, you'll notice that a lot in networking products that are either older or potentially something that just doesn't really need a lot of speed. Um, and when I talk about speed, this is another thing that I notice a lot of people don't understand. So in your home, let's say there's a couple different options you can have. You can have what's called a dual band router, which your Nighthawk Travis is a dual band router. You have simultaneous dual band, and you have um, sometimes it's called dual band steering. You'll hear that a lot, band steering or dual band steering. So, kind of explain it, how this all kind of functions together. And before we go on, I just wanted to say, let me see, we got about 20 people in here. I just wanted to say that I have a degree in information technology. I also have a degree in computer science engineering. I all I do for a living, and I've been doing it since I was 16 years old, maybe for the last 15 years. I install networks and I program Crestron systems. That's my job. So this is something that I do as a profession. So I'm not just spewing this information out. I'm hopefully giving you guys information based on experience and something that I do for, this is my job. But anyway, so 2.4 and 5 gigahertz are currently your two Wi-Fi networks out there. Now, you'll notice when you look at them, they have different names. There's your B network, your A network, your G network, your N network, your AC network. There's going to be all different ones. They're always coming out with different ones. And basically what that means is the network's bandwidth capability. Um, bandwidth is the right word. So what that means is like G, when G came out, it was 54, I think it was 54 megabytes. Yeah, 54 megabytes. So then after G, there was something called N that came out, right? Now N was able to support 450 megabytes. And then, AC came out, which is kind of the newest thing, which can support 1200 or 1.2 gigabytes. Now, here's the thing though. The bandwidth, or not the bandwidth, I'm sorry, the band 2.4 and 5, you have to understand that 2.4 does not support AC. It doesn't support it. So when you have an AC band trying to get that kind of speed, you have to connect to a 5 gigahertz. It's not going to work on a 2.4. It's just that particular bandwidth doesn't have the amount of strength, let's say, to get it to that amount of speed, right? So that's why they came out with stuff like dual band steering and dual simultaneous bands and all this crazy stuff, right? So when you're connecting your phone generally to your network, most phones have both a 2.4 and a 5 gigahertz antenna inside them, and they will select whatever is possible on the network. Now, what I use in my house is simultaneous dual band, which is what I recommend to everybody. A lot of people out there will do a 2.4 network and a 5 network, which again I think is silly because most networks have the ability to do simultaneous dual band. And what that means is your device will dictate which band, depending on the strength and how close you are to the signal, which one it wants to connect to. Okay. Now, of course, there's older routers that don't have simultaneous dual band, so you have to split them. But most new routers out nowadays have simultaneous dual band. And I highly recommend everybody out there to use simultaneous dual band, because then whatever device goes into your system, it's going to connect to that specific band, dependent on, of course, if the device supports it. So here's an example. We have a Mastertronic, right? We have a Hydros, right? Apex even. And you try to connect those to simultaneous dual bands. It's going to connect to the 2.4 no matter what. It's always going to connect to the 2.4 no matter what. Now, depending on your router, you can actually tell your router to, for older or legacy devices or only 2.4, to only connect to 2.4 and not try to connect to 5. So you get a lot of people out there, they're trying to connect their Mastertronic and they're going nuts because they can't figure it out, because they're trying to get, they're trying to get their Mastertronic connected to 5, even though they haven't set their router properly for it to know which one to connect to, basically. So I see that a lot in the hobby. I see a lot of people, a lot of just tons of people posting on forums about, oh, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't, and it's usually networking. It's just basic stuff. But again, if you're not familiar with networks, you're going to run into all these issues. That's why networks are so important in our hobby. Yeah, Lucas just said exactly what I said, basically. It just picks the band for you, exactly. So let's talk about the two different bands, so that way you can differentiate the reasoning for both of them. One of the reasons for 5 gigahertz, and the reason it was developed, was because almost everything runs off of 2.4. I don't know if anybody has landlines in their house anymore, but a landline phone that's hooked up to its wireless base or whatever is going to have a 2.4 gigahertz. If you remember back in the day, you get those phones at like Best Buy and they say 2.4 gigahertz. Well, it's all the same, right? And then those phones also run off of the same channels as Wi-Fi. So if you have a landline in your house and you're running those wireless phones, which, like I said, not many people do anymore, they're going to interfere with your Wi-Fi because they run off of the same bandwidth, 2.4. Or bandwidth isn't the right word, it's more radio wave. It runs off of the 2.4 radio wave or RF signal. So they developed the 5 because 5 runs off of channels that are much higher in the hundreds that not many devices can even connect to. So that's why they developed the 5, right? So since they developed the 5, you have the option now of connecting to 2.4 or 5 with your device, right? Now 2.4, as we mentioned earlier, supports up to a specific amount of speed. Usually it's about 120-ish megabytes, whereas, or MIPS as we call it. And then you have your AC network, which is currently the highest, which will support 1.2 gig. So that's when it says support, what that means is the speed at which your device sends packets or sends information to the other device and back and forth. That's how fast it goes. Okay. So if you have 5 and you have 2.4, right, you can choose which one you want to connect to, right? But there's a caveat to both of them. So 2.4, not only does it have more interference, but it also has a much farther range. The reason it has much farther range is just because the antenna in which it uses is able to penetrate walls, different things at a much better, I don't know how to explain this, like the radio wave is able to penetrate surfaces better than the 5. So that's why you'll notice that in most homes, if you're doing dual bands or dual simultaneous bands, you're going to notice your 5 doesn't cover as much as your 2.4. So that's why it's nice to have both, because then if you're closer to the access point, you can connect to 5, and if you're farther away, you can connect to 2.4. And again, if it's simultaneous dual band or dual band steering, your device is going to automatically choose which one it wants to connect to. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of people putting in networks and splitting the networks and I just see all kinds of funny things, and I always wonder why. And then they tell me, well, 5 is faster. Well, Yes, it's faster, but if you're in a house that's very large and you're trying to connect to something and you're on 5 and they constantly are disconnecting, I say, well, you need to add an access point or you need to connect to 2.4. So while 5 is faster, you got to understand that it's faster in transmission between devices. It doesn't make your internet faster. It doesn't, internet's a whole nother thing. So my phone connecting to my computer, for instance, and I'm transferring a file between the two, that's the speed that we're talking about. It's not the speed at which your internet comes into your home. That has nothing to do with this. Your internet that comes into your home is provided by your provider who provides your speed. So if your internet provider says, I'm going to give you 150 megabytes on your network, you can have the fastest network in the world. Your internet is only going to tap out at 150 always, no matter what. For instance, most people have gig right now, right? So that means, and it's usually up to gig speeds. If your network is running off of 2.4 and your Wi-Fi devices don't support AC, for example, you're paying for gig for nothing. There's no way you can get gig on your devices because your devices don't support it through Wi-Fi. Hardwire is another conversation. Hardwire, you don't have to worry about most of what we're saying. If you have gigabit and you have a gigabit card on your computer and you connect the two, you're going to get gig speeds all the time on your internet. But again, all the speed conversations we're having have to do with device to device or peer to peer. Your computer, when it downloads something, it's connecting to a server, which is another computer essentially. If that server has a gigabit card in it, right, and that server that has a gigabit card is on a network that's, crap and only supports 200 megabytes, then you're only going to get 200 megabyte download speed no matter what you do. So there's a lot of moving pieces here to a lot of people's complaints about speed, for instance. They'll get a speed test. Usually when you go to do your speed test, like on Ookla, it's going to say I'm connecting to so-and-so server. Well, if you look up that server, you can find out what equipment they're using. You can find out, are they using gigabit system equipment? Are they using, now there's 10G, so now it's 10 gigabit systems out there. You know what I mean? So again, it's really complex stuff. But what I want you guys to get out of this is that most people that have aquarium controllers and anything on the aquarium have really crappy networks and assume that their aquarium controllers are going to work fantastic when they're on some network they bought at Best Buy for $10. So I just want you to realize that networking is probably the most important thing to having a stable controller and having a stable experience with your Apex or with your Hydros or with your all these testers that are out there. Anything that runs off of Wi-Fi, you have to have a strong network. And if you assume that you're going to have some great network and you don't know how to set up the network properly, one, and second, you have all these dropouts and then you call Apex and go, my Apex is constantly dropping out, and then they ask you, well, what kind of network do you have? And you go, oh, well, I have this Mesh Eero network that I bought at Best Buy for $100. It's not a good network, guys. So the assumption should be at that point it's your network and not the Apex. All right, Fred said, do you typically configure the Crestron on a separate private network? Is the code locally hosted or does it network? Or does the network it is on need internet access? So I do a lot of Crestron systems. Depending on the site, will depend on if I'm going to make a VLAN for the Crestron system. If you're familiar with Crestron, they actually have products that make their own VLANs nowadays, so there's really no need to do that anymore. There used to be back in the days. For those that don't know what a VLAN is, it's basically another network on your network that only specific things can access. I mean, that's the best way to explain it. Most Crestron systems we do a VPN, which is a virtual private network. And what that means is you can connect from the outside to their network. And that's what a VPN is. Again, we're getting into really complex stuff, but point I'm making is the Crestron systems don't generally need anything special because all the ports that they use and all the security that they use really can't be penetrated if it's set up properly. Um, and the code is always hosted locally, always. Crestron doesn't have a cloud type program. It's always hosted on the device itself. So hopefully that makes sense. Man, I wish we had more people in here today. It's unfortunate because I like talking about this stuff. Um, you guys have any questions about everything I've said? I know I've spewed a lot of stuff, and yeah, my guest didn't make it. It looks like I'm checking in on him, but it's just unfortunate. But I do have a fun stream coming up. I have two fun streams coming up actually. I have a stream. We got Glenn Rudolph, who's always in our is always in our chat making fun of me. He's going to be on my stream, so that's going to be fun. Um, so that'll be great. I like having my subscribers on my streams. And yeah, once I get that Mastertronic, we're gonna have some fun with that. I'm gonna do a full test on it. I'm gonna really put it through its I test everything on these products. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Like I said, it's a lot of technical information. I I think it's important that people understand that networking is the backbone of all of the stuff we're doing with our aquariums. And I don't know about you folks, but as someone that does this for a living, and has to see all these people just ragging, I see it from Hydros, like I said, I see it from Apex, GHL, Focustronic. I mean, all these devices that run off of networking, right? And they're just constantly bitching about how this isn't working because I can't connect to my network and I can't do this and I can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the product. It's something wrong with your network. That's what causes most of this stuff. Yeah, Glenn will be fun, Lucas, for sure. Um, it boggles my mind, and I only say that because I can assure everyone on this channel, and I've said this multiple times, I have three Hydros controllers now. I have two Reef bots, go figure. I have, let's see, on the Hydros, I have three smart plugs. I have um, Yeah, I have my Apex, of course, and I have like 40 devices on the Apex, 40 USB driven devices, and then I have all of my networking stuff that goes on for my reptile room. Then, of course, I have my computer, and I'm streaming live to you guys, right? And I have all this other things that I'm doing. Unless I'm mistaken, if you've been on my streams before, usually my streams are nice and clear. They work the whole time. I don't have many issues normally. It's because of how I set up my network, right? And I think, and not only that, but I have never had an issue with my Apex. I haven't had a single issue with my Hydros. In terms of ReefBot connecting to the network, I've never had an issue with that. I mean, yeah, it sucks in other ways, but it's never not connected to the internet. It's always on my network. Um, so it's kind of like I feel bad for someone that spends like $10,000 on their aquarium, and then spends another, let's just say, $1,000 on their controller, and then goes to Best Buy. And I'm knocking Best Buy because I used to work there, but goes to Best Buy and buys this Arrow network, or this cheapo garbage network, right? On this $10,000 equipment system that they set up. It's like, why? I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. For most people, they should be spending a good portion on their network if they want that product to work properly. And again, I'm only telling you this because I don't have network issues. I don't have dropouts. I don't have any of these issues on my network. I don't have gigabit network, right? I don't have I mean, I have a pretty sophisticated network, but it's not that sophisticated. It's a single network. I use Ubiquiti product. That's what I use. But I've used all kinds of product. They're all good if they're set up properly. Yeah, I ran a hardwire to my Apex also. And I mentioned this in previous streams a lot. I don't like how Hydros is wireless on their switches. So I like that they've come out with that XP8 because now it's not going to be um, it's not going the controller itself is built in to the device now, so it's not relying on another device to send it a signal to turn off and on. So I think that's going to be a great product. I still wish that they would make something on the Hydros line that has an Ethernet jack. I don't understand why they can't make their stuff hardwired. I mean, even ReefBot has a hardwire connection if you don't want to use Wi-Fi. Um, Let's see. Saw a video of your house. Nice setup. Which setups? Which speakers are you using? I have Martin Logan's. They're one of my favorites. I actually sell Martin Logan, so that's a product that I believe in. I love Martin Logan. Thank you, DJ Mike Fury. I like that you got to watch that. I had a lot of people watch that video, surprisingly. Seems like IT is similar to auto mechanics. Providers take advantage of a lack of understanding. Um, I don't know about that, Fred. I think that the providers want to sell you on their BS. I think that they, this here in Arizona we have Cox Communications, and Cox has this thing called panoramic Wi-Fi, right? All panoramic Wi-Fi is mesh networking. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. Um, again, it's all about how you say what it is. But if you actually do research on what you're purchasing, you'll find out some of the interesting facts that these companies provide to you as internet providers. I know there's Verizon out there that's kind of shady. AT&T has always been shady. Um, like I said, it's I don't know how to say it other than you get what you paid for when it comes to networking. And if you, I will tell you this much: if you use your networking in your house and you click on automatic setup or set it up for me or whatever that thing is when you click on your network and it has an auto setup, generally that it's not a good product. Like generally a good IT product or a good networking product is going to make you set it up. Um, and again, I'm going by when I say good or bad, I'm talking about if you want a real good network or a real kind of not so good network. And again, it's dependent on obviously your financial situation, if you can spend the money, or of course, if you really need a good, strong network. Some people just don't. You might live in an apartment, right? And you got a little, 120 or something, and you have a Hydros on it. Would you need a strong network in that situation? You really don't, right? But if you have a nice size house, even like 1,500 square foot house, it's still going to need one or two access points. It can't survive properly on one access point. It just can't. Uh, and again, when I say that, I think you just have to understand I'm coming from going into homes and seeing the people's struggles over years and years and years. DJ Mike saying, for me, the XP makes sense. I think the XP8 is a great product. I really do. Um, want to pick up an XP8 for my collective? Awesome, man. I sell them. They're not available yet, but I'm taking pre-orders, so if you want one, I'm excited for them to come out myself. I think it's a great product. I really do. Let's see what else we got here. Well, I guess we don't have that unless we have some admins on. I don't see any of my moderators on tonight. We had some guy come in and spam some BS. Travis, I think one access point is enough for a 1,000 square foot house as long as you place it. One other thing I didn't mention is about placement of these things. Um, Most people, I mean, actually, if you go online and look at access points, look at like good access points, right? Most of them require you to mount them to the ceiling. There's a reason why. If you take your router, I see this all the time. If you take your router and you throw it underneath your desk and put the Wi-Fi signal there, that is the worst thing you can do. You want it to be as high as possible. You want it to be in the highest you can. If you can mount it on top of a cabinet, that would be the best place for it. Um, and that'll solve most of your Wi-Fi problems. Um, Also, the middle of the house, of course. I think that's an obvious suggestion. If you can place your access points towards the center of your home as much as possible, that will really help. Yeah, all the products I have are Ubiquiti. That's all I have in my home. Yeah, see, even Rob B says he's got a Google Mesh and using an Asus router for his fish room. I don't even think you need to do that. I know it works great for you, and that's fantastic. I just don't. Oh, here we go. Here's another jackass. All right, you're getting banned. Banned. Boom. Hey, guys, guess what? For your information, VOI. All right, so use the Google. That's right. I mean, again, Rob, I'm not going to fault you because it sounds like it's working great. But I don't even think you need to do that. I think if you didn't have the Google Mesh in general, I think you can really get a good, strong network where you wouldn't need an additional router just for your fish room. But, it's working for you, so there you go. Again, I'm just not a fan of mesh networking. And I explained it in the beginning of the stream. So if you guys didn't get to see that, you'll have to look back and see what I said about mesh networking. I have a very strong feeling about mesh networking. Let me see. So what other questions you guys got? I know I kind of spewed a lot of stuff, so I apologize. I know networking is complex. That's why I wish I had my friend on here because he was gonna, he goes through networking with me all the time. Uh, some equipment just won't deal with mesh even if you hold it to 2.4. That is definitely true. Like I said, Rob, I said this earlier. I think when it comes to networking, it's going to depend on your own situation, right? Oh my God, another ban. See, what's this guy's name? Who knows Russian? Whatever. Bye bye. See ya. This is why I need mods on my channel. So Travis, I don't really have a specific answer for you. Um, you know, routers in general, I'll tell you this much. Let me give you this advice, and I think a lot of people on the stream will agree with me. Um, do not buy a router with Wi-Fi built in. Buy a router, buy a switch, and buy an access point. All separate products. You're going to find that by doing that, it's going to be a much more stable and it's going to be a much stronger system. Um, I think the all-in-one units, while they have their place in here, if you were to ask me personally what I would purchase for my own home, that's what I would recommend to you. So what I'd recommend to you is you can look at three different things. My recommendation would be look at a Ubiquiti Dream Machine. That would be my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be look at possibly a Luxel router with no Wi-Fi built into it and a Luxel access point. That would be my second recommendation. There's so many network products out there. I always recommend you stay away from Linksys. Linksys in general just does not have the greatest track record for their products. If you go with their Cisco, which is basically a sister company of Linksys, Cisco makes much better products, but they're very difficult to set up if you don't have IT, know-how. Yeah, like I said, I think a Dream Machine is probably the best thing you should buy. And in terms of what's the minimum you would recommend spending, I don't really have an answer for you on that. I can sell you right now a network installed and set up that will blow any network you've ever had away for $1,500. I mean, that's just being dead honest with you. That's a router, that's a switch, that's like 2 or 3 access points. Even if you don't need all of them, one access point you could put in there. Installation and all that would be under $1,000 easily. I mean, Ubiquiti product is not expensive. The Russians are taking over. I usually don't get spam on my channel. But I usually had mods on. I don't know where they are tonight. Oh, I think Dupree is on here somewhere. He's one of my mods. Um, well, like I said, Rob, way overkill for most people's needs. Like I said, you could do one access point. You could do a Ubiquity. Um, you could do a Ubiquity router. You could do a Ubiquity switch. You don't even need a switch. You could just get a Ubiquity router and a Wi-Fi access point. If you don't have a lot of hardwired devices, that's like 500 bucks. Even a Dream Machine is like 500 bucks, and that's enough. That'll take care of your network for years. Um, but again, for most people, they don't need it. Like Rob said, I totally agree with that. But what I don't like, and what I mentioned earlier, which kind of just irks me, is that people blame the product, like I said, Apex, on their network. Or I'm sorry, on the product when it's actually their network because they decided to get some cheapo network. That's all I was kind of trying to say. Must be my crappy router. Mm, man, my eye is all messed up today. So yeah, we got some cool guys coming on. I've never, I trying to think. There's been a bunch of people I've asked to be on here. I've asked Telegram to be on my stream. He doesn't answer me ever. I feel bad because I would like to have him on. Um, I'd really like to have what's his face on there? Carlos from Hydros on here. I've been trying to get them on to go over advanced programming. So hopefully we can get those guys on pretty soon here. And of course, the big awaited Mastertronic versus Reefbot video was going to be awesome. I can't wait to shoot that. Um, let's see. Yeah, sorry, it's there's not a lot of people on, so not a lot of questions, not a lot of stuff going on, and my guest decided to ditch me, so I'm coming up with stuff just kind of off the cuff tonight. And we're almost at an hour anyway, so we'll probably be going pretty soon on this. Um, but yeah, no giveaway. We don't even have enough people to give away, do anything anyways. I have some auto feeders I'm gonna be giving away, probably on the next stream on Glenn's stream. For those that don't know, I'm gonna have Glenn on next week. I think we planned it, so that'll be cool to have Glenn on. Me and him kind of he trolls me all the time on my channel, so I think it'll be fun to have him on. Um, but do we have any questions? Any other questions about networking? Otherwise, we're gonna close up shop pretty soon here. Um, Mike Fury, I'm not telling you what it is. I'll just tell you it's an auto feeder. I guess Tuesday nights suck. I guess we're gonna have to do Monday nights. Everyone was like, we should do Monday nights, and then they all complain about Monday night football, right? And now we do it on Tuesday. No one showed up. Maybe because it was networking. Of course, networking's not important, so we don't need to be on here. Just like my guest here, who I'm gonna have a nice chat with after I'm done not showing up. I haven't had luck with guests lately. I don't know. Maybe they're scared of me. I think I'm a pretty nice guy to my guests. I don't think I've ever been a jerk to any of my guests. I think I was a little harsh on what's his face, Eric over at Focustronic, because I was so mad about not getting a Mastertronic. And finally, after what, a year now, I got my Mastertronic coming. Yeah, I tried to tell people I was streaming tonight. I tried to post it everywhere, but it's okay. So if you have a standard ASUS router and add an access point, is it better to rename the SSD to someone else or should you name it the same? Always name it the same. Um, always. That's just always. What it's gonna do is your product, whatever your product is, your phone, your computer, your device, most, if not all, wireless products in the last 10 years will automatically always connect to the stronger band. You're never gonna see a networking device go, oh well, this one's slower and there's no and I'm getting 10%. I'm going to connect to that one. No, what we call it sticky networking. And if you actually go into your network adapter settings in your computer, you can actually set specific amounts of stickiness essentially to tell your device what to connect to. But ReefKeeper, it'll always connect to the stronger or closer access point, even if it's the same SSID. The question then becomes, should each SSID, I'm sorry, um, I'm sorry, let me say this again. Should your router's access point or your other access point share the same channel? Potentially you can have interference if and only if you have other things on that same channel. So what I always recommend is that if you have multiple access points, that you put them all on different channels. So that way your device has zero interference if it's going to connect to the strongest one. However, this is the big however, if your neighbor or other devices in your wherever you are sharing that same channel, always make sure you take it off of that channel. There's a product called Insider. I think I can actually load it up. We were having issues with this last time, so we'll see what happens. It was not working last time. And to your comment, Rob, about 2.4 the same name, that's actually inaccurate, and I'm only saying that because I mentioned it earlier on the stream. Can you guys see this? Okay, there we go. Okay, this is a product called Insider Office. It's a fantastic product. Again, I am a network professional, so this is something that I have to have. Now, what's so great about this product? Can you guys see this? I want to make sure you guys can see this. If you can't, let me know. It's probably skipping because I'm running like 15 different things now at the same time. Yeah, this insider is not happy. Let's see if I can do it this way. Okay, well, I'll try to mention it fast. Well, all right, so if you can see, there is the 2.4 on the left and the 5 on the right, and it has the channels in which they are used and the signal strength of each channel. Okay? Can you guys hear me okay? It looks like, I don't know how, it's because this Insider Office is a very strong program. So what this does is essentially tells you which channels are on your specific networks are using. So for instance, mine is the Mariners and the Bears. Those are my networks. You'll notice that they are separate from all of my other anything around me. The CenturyLink, the Smart Life, this Wiser thing. These are neighbors of mine, right? So you'll notice that mine sit places that are not getting interference, right? Also, I want you guys to notice something. I don't know what this Hod Your Wish shirt is. Another Russian guy trying to come in. But I want you to notice something very important. Networks actually don't work off of one single channel, okay? So, for instance, if you set your access point to 1, it's actually running on 1, 2, and 3. If you set your access point to 6, it's actually running on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's taking up all of these channels. Okay. Now you'll also notice that on the 5G side, the channel width is much smaller because it doesn't actually take up as much channels. So you can actually get away with 5G a lot better than your 2.4. You see that? So this program is called Insider Office. And like I said, it's a fantastic product. It'll tell you exactly what your channels you're using are, what your signal strength is. It'll tell you what your max amount of speed. So you'll notice that I can get out of mine, I can get 1.7 G out of my network. That's the fastest I can go because I'm on N and AC. So let me switch back over here. Stupid thing. Close out this. Okay, you guys should be hearing me now. Hopefully better than you were before. Yes, DJ Mike Fury. So that is not only does it show you your signal strength from different access points, but it also shows you the amount of speed. If you have any interference from other people, it's going to show you pretty much everything. And I use that program for troubleshooting all the time, right? My audio is jacked. It's because that Insider Office program just takes up a lot of resources on the computer. So that's why I closed it. So now you guys should be able to hear me a lot better. But yeah, that's a good program for figuring out your Wi-Fi strength in your house. It's also a good program for figuring out if you have any interference in your house. I use it all the time. You know, when I set up a network, if I need to know what channel I need to have on something because a neighbor is, that's how I do it. And for people that have Wi-Fi issues or they have interference issues or dropouts, that type of program, you know, is a fantastic program, guys. And again, it's expensive. It's for, you know, yeah, the program takes up a lot of CPU to run, so that's why it was doing that. But yeah, I like I said, a lot of people don't realize that how much your Wi-Fi is actually taking up in your house without using that program to really get an idea of what's going on, where your channels are, and everything. Yeah, so I think it's a good program for troubleshooting. Like I said, if you're having issues, it's a very simple program to use. But yeah, anyway, hopefully I showed you something on that. All right, like I said, we got about an hour and we got people leaving, so I appreciate everybody that stayed put. Stayed put. That's right. I know it was a lot of information and not the most fun information, unfortunately, but people asked for this, so I did it. And like I said, we're gonna have a fun one next week, and it will be hopefully on Monday, so people remember. And yeah. Any other questions before I go? That was gonna probably be. I think I answered Reef Keeper's program with same. You saw if you saw the program and you really understood it. If you go back and rewind it, you could probably understand it a lot faster or simpler if you look at it for a while. You'll notice my SSIDs are all the same. I have 3 access points, you know, and they all have the same exact SSID. However, depending on how I wanted to set it up, and in this case I set it up all on the same channel, you want to separate those channels. Obviously I can't because I have neighbors that are on those channels. So I had to set up all of my access points on the same channel. But in general, to Reef Keeper's point, using the same SSID on separate channels is the best course of action, but you wouldn't know what channels are open or not without a program like this to do a scan. Some routers, like Ubiquiti, and some Wi-Fi access points have the ability to do a scan for you and tell you what your Wi-Fi signal or if you have any interference on specific channels. So therefore you can change a channel to what you want. But just remember, if you look back at that picture that I said, channel 1 actually uses channel 1, 2, and 3. Channel 5 uses 4, 5, 6. It actually uses a group of channels. That's why people say to always put your access point on channel 1, 6, or 11 for 2.4, and always put it on like 136 is generally okay for 5. But again, without having that software, you wouldn't be able to know where your interference is, So anyway, I'll let you guys go. I appreciate you sticking by me, like I said. I was hopeful we'd have a lot of people in here, but can't have the best stream every time. But I appreciate everyone that did come in, and look forward to testing out my Mastertronic now that I was able to buy one. I'm excited as can be. Should be here tomorrow, I hope. I don't know. So hope you guys have a good week, and I hope to see you next week. Peace.